We used to call it the power of the pen, right? You'd be upset at a company or somebody in power and you'd write an angrily worded letter. You'd type it out or you'd write it yourself. Well, now it's the power of the email, the cancellation policy, the social media post, the media tag, whatever it is. But it just may be time. I'll say this often. You don't either. I'm using finger quotes here if you're just listening. Bud Light, the Hilton brand, because of what they did yesterday. You probably heard the first part where they refused service. No room at the inn. They refused service to DHS employees. But then it got worse somehow for them. And if they don't fix it, I think it's time to Bud Light them. How cool is it that Bud Light is now a term for canceling people? Anyway, we've got that to talk about. Tubby Tampon Tim Walz dropped out of the race as expected. There's a reason why it's looking, though, it looks like the fraud in Minnesota is way worse than we even heard about. And then to wrap it up, Mamdani in New York now wants to put his greedy little socialist fingers into World Cup ticket prices. Oh, yeah, because he thinks he has that kind of influence. Anyway, we'll get to all of it. First of all, before all that stuff, thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. live here on X and on Facebook and on YouTube, and then it lives on as a replay. And then the audio podcast shortly after that, wherever you like to get those. Let's get right to it. Here's the post that started the whole hullabaloo with DHS and Hilton hotels. I kind of like that government officials now write creatively on X. It's like they learned how to do it, because this was the post, and this is all in capitals. This is the Department of Homeland Security official X account. No room at the inn. They actually had like a hook, like a creative headline. And then they go on to say, and it's long, but it's important, at Hilton Hotels has launched a coordinated campaign in Minneapolis to refuse service to DHS law enforcement. Not good. When officers attempted to book rooms using official government emails and rates, Hilton Hotels immediately canceled their reservations. You might have seen this like I did, and you said, what? Hold on a second. I sure hope the DHS, when they posted this, has some proof and some screenshots. Oh, they do. I'm sure you've seen the post, too. Then they go on to say, of course, unacceptable. Why is Hilton Hotels siding with murderers and rapists to deliberately undermine and impede DHS law enforcement from their mission to enforce the nation's immigration laws? And sure enough, there are the screenshots that they posted right there in the same post on X yesterday of proof of what they're talking about. Well, then this raged on for a little bit, and people were like upset about this. Then you had other journalists looking at it, and it raged on, and the entire country was saying, hold on a second. I'm a Hilton Honors member. I am, actually. A lot of people ready to press cancel unless something was going to be done about it. Then a couple of hours later, and I think the timeline's important here, I was actually impressed by this. So the response from Hilton came out and said this. And I thought, honestly, not a bad response. Pretty quick. I think they jumped right on it. You know, they didn't want to get canceled. I was pretty impressed with the response from Hilton. There's more to the story, but this is the response. The franchise involved is Everpeak Hospitality, which operates from the Hampton Inn, Lakeville, Minneapolis, the property at the center. Everpeak has issued a public statement on January acknowledging issue. Everpeak Hospitality has moved swiftly to address this matter as it was inconsistent with our policy of being a welcoming place for all. We were in touch with the impacted guests, blah, blah, blah. We don't discriminate, blah, 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 and apologize for those impacted. Again, I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was a pretty good apology from this particular franchise. We'll get into that in a second. That's associated with the Hilton brand. And that's kind of how it works. So Hilton, they have so many brands in their umbrella. They operate on a franchise model. In other words, this particular franchisee, Everpeak, owns a bunch of hotels that have the Hilton name on the side of it. Okay, so that's how it works, right? Now, I'm always raging against this because I've just been aware of it for so long. When you're like in the media or you see how, if you've ever worked with either ad agencies or publicists, you know exactly where I'm going with this. And you've heard me, if you've been with me for a long time, you're one of my OGs, you've heard me say it a lot. It's called the non-apology apology. And there's two ways it goes. Usually public figures work the non-apology apology by using this line. We're sorry you were offended. You know, that one, like they put the onus on you and the blame on you. Or the other option for the non-apology apology is what they did here. They say, we're very sorry, unacceptable, taking immediate action. And then nothing actually gets done. Those are the two angles of the non-apology apology, the two directions they take. It looks as though this Everpeak franchisee associated with Hilton, and Hilton, by the way, took the do no action policy. And I get it. I'm actually, in my real life, I am a franchisee myself of a different kind of brand. I understand the damage that can happen when a franchisee goes rogue, and like tears the company apart. It's very damaging to the brand. You have to be able to do something, right? But after that apology, and that lasted overnight, most people were like my reaction, and maybe yours, you were like, okay, well, all right. They apologized. They're taking action on it. These are different days, my friends. Thanks to the greatness of independent journalists, and in this case, Nick Sorter. I don't know if you've ever followed him. Nick Shirley is the guy that discovered all the Minnesota fraud. Nick Sorter is another guy that happens to be in Minnesota because so much fraud has been there. Isn't that interesting? So Nick Sorter, God love him, decided to go to the actual Everpeak Hilton brand hotel in Minneapolis and find out what the big deal was. And he did have a hidden camera, and he talked up. Now, again, let's get this out of the way. He asked some questions of the front desk kid you're about to hear and see right here. It's not the front desk kid's fault, like at all. He's just following company policy. Let's not get mad at him. But what Nick Sorter, independent journalist, found was absolutely incredible. Keep this in mind. This was about 10 p.m. Minnesota time last night, right? This was supposedly after the story broke out. Went huge, number one viral story in the country yesterday and today now. And the apology, quote unquote, was already issued as of last night. Now here's the moment. Audio's a little low because it was like a hidden camera kind of deal. But this is when Nick Sorter went into that particular Hilton location last night to find out what the deal was, and he posed as a DHS employee to try to book a room. What you'll hear here, and we'll go over it again after, is him asking the kid for that, and the poor kid says, no, it's company policy, there's a lot going on, and what he says important was, I just talked to the franchise owners who said we don't have to make any changes. There's a reason why my eyebrows are raising it. Let's go right to it. Skip right to the part where Nick Sorter asks him that question. Again, let's not get mad at the front desk kid. He's just following orders. But that's the key to the story. Those are the orders from this franchisee for Hilton, not changing a damn thing even after the policy was issued. Here we go.
Is it, what agency is it for? Using the
Well,
government rate?
they'd be Department of Homeland Security.
So we're not accepting people from immigration, ICE agents, DHS into our property. It's just the management ownership.
Oh, okay, I thought that changed today. Was that?
I just talked to my the owner of the building, and he didn't say there has been any changes. So
Really? Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's just policy, that.
Yeah, I mean
they
that's
said.
not your fault. Totally.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault, but he said it right there. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And none of us would have known about this. None of us would have known that this was a non-apology apology, a do-nothing apology, unless Nick Sorter, and Nick Sorter alone, independent journalist, God love him, went in there and he actually did that. And again, let's be clear, it's not that front desk kid's fault. He says right there, he says right to Nick, I just talked to the owners and the owner of the building, and they say we don't have to change policy at all. I don't know what else you need. All right, now, again, I understand how independent franchisees can go rogue. I understand that world. I get it. It can be very damaging. But what we have here is a real problem now that is directly in the hands of Hilton. Now, there is a report out this morning that may be confirmed to be true or false by the time you watch this later on or listen to the podcast. We may get a definitive word on that. But as of right now, and in real time, this is just past 8 a.m. Eastern time as we're doing a live stream, there is a report, unconfirmed, out this morning that Hilton, the big brand, has completely cut ties with this franchisee that happens to run this particular location. That's the rumor, this Everpeak Hospitality, okay? If that's true, and you can do that as a franchisor, you can completely cut the license. You can drop them. You can, in other words, there'll be a lock on this building because we're not associated with you anymore. I mean, a franchisor can do that if you break the franchise rules. There's a rumor that they have. Great. That would be action. That would be the right thing to do for Hilton. If they have not, and if this still goes on, it's time. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I'll do. I'm a Hilton Honors member, and we're time to cut. Time to cut. If this is allowed to happen, if they are allowed, any one of their hotels under their umbrella are allowed to refuse service to employees of the government that are doing their job, whether or not you agree to it, you can't have that. You can't have that. And I know a lot of people are against you're against, canceling anybody, even if it's a brand, and you don't want to boycott anybody. I understand that. But how else, as a consumer who's upset about this, do you push back? You have to. Bud Light was one thing, and I know that's the term now. I even used it at the beginning of the live stream. Bud Lighting, as a verb, Bud Lighting Hilton. I get that. That was one thing where people just were having fun with it, and they were upset at the woke garbage in one of their favorite brands. This is something that's a different level. This is Department of Homeland Security, for political reasons, employees for DHS and apparently ICE too being refused service. Like the original post said, no room at the inn. If they don't take action, and this may be, again, by the time you hear this or watch this in real later, not in real time, this may be confirmed true or not. If Hilton does not cut ties with this particular franchise and close that place up and take their name off the side of the building, it's time to push back on that. You can't allow that. That's absolutely ridiculous. Insane. So we shall see, my friends. Other takeaway? My God. Holy crap. Elon was right. Let's admit it. We are the media now. Independent journal. I'm not a journalist. I'm a commentator. But still, independent journalists are the media now. We don't even know about this non-apology, about nothing getting done, unless Nick Sorter goes in there with a camera, happened to be in Minneapolis covering the fraud story, and he goes into that hotel and finds out what the real deal was from that kid. It would have died yesterday with an apology that meant nothing. Unbelievable. It's just, these are different times. New media rocks, I'm telling you. All right. Speaking of Minnesota, well. Tubby Tampon Tim, as expected, we were saying this yesterday. There was a rumor out yesterday that he was going to not run for re-election as governor of Minnesota. Now, usually when something like that happens, it's not just the amount of fraud that he's overseen and his incompetence and his corruption. Usually there's something even worse coming down the pike. What do we know about politicians? It takes a lot for them to step out of a race, drop out of anything. He'll finish his term, but he's not going to run for governor again. Well, as it turns out, there's a lot more coming. According to Caroline Levitt yesterday, she says they are like quadrupling down in their investigation of the fraud in Minnesota. This is what she said yesterday, and then we'll go to Tubby Tampon Tim's resignation. Not resignation, his announcement he's quitting the race.
Government effort. We are surging resources. You saw today the Department of Homeland Security announced we have nearly 2,000 agents from the Homeland Security Investigations Team. The FBI is on the ground, and we're freezing money. HHS cut off funding for child care centers and for daycares. USDA Secretary Rollins has been asking Governor Walz to see the recipients of SNAP in his state. So this is all hands on deck, rest assured.
My sense of that means, and who would know better? Tim Walz does, of course, that they're about to discover the level of fraud that is way worse than we even imagined in our darkest dreams. That's the only thing that would have caused somebody like this to not run for governor again. But here he was yesterday. Now watch him not taking blame, not taking responsibility at all. What got me on this, though, is how he scurried out of the room and wouldn't take any questions. Here he is, tough guy, Tubby Tampon Tim.
I'm proud of the way we treat our neighbors. I'm proud of the way that we welcome people to this state. I'm proud of the way that we innovate. And I'm proud of the way that we are optimists for the future. No one's taking this away from us. Not the fraudsters. Certainly not this president. Not on my watch. Tomorrow, I'll be back with you. I'll give you an update on America's best paid family medical leave program that is now a week into it. And at that time, I'll take all your questions. Thank you all.
But not right now, because I have to go in the corner and cry. Not this president. Not on my watch. The reason why, and I try not to, do the name calling thing, but I did with him because do you happen to remember that one clip during the campaign where he was talking about Trump supporters? This was the era when he was calling everybody who didn't agree with him weird. I mean, you were talking about projection. That guy and his wife calling other people weird? Yeah, okay. But remember he said, Trump supporters, I think I could kick most of their asses. That's why I feel no shame and I feel no guilt and no hesitation at calling that guy every name in the book. He's just an absolute clown show. that guy. So he's going away. But again, like Caroline Levitt said, they're quadrupling their efforts and doubling down on what the investigation will find in that state. And I think what we're going to find is going to be so shocking that it's going to take us a little while to process all of it. That's the only thing I can imagine that would make a guy like that, a career politician, not run for re-election again. I mean, even the Democrats are looking at him going, yeah, gee, Tim, this is looking really bad. You can't run. Nobody circles the wagons like Democrats. They protect their own. For him to be ousted? Wow. Man, that's something. All right. This was a lighthearted story of the day. It doesn't sound like it's lighthearted. It never seems lighthearted when you are talking about Mamdani, the new communist, and I do mean communist, don't let him fool you, communist mayor of New York City. But I laughed out loud when I heard this because now he dedicated a portion of his outside press conference. Oh, and by the way, Letitia James, right to his right. Isn't that perfect? Dedicated this part of it to talking about World Cup ticket prices. Oh, no. So now you've got the communist mayor of New York ready to price fix, or thinking he can, World Cup tickets. Don't forget, the World Cup in 26 this summer is coming to cities across the U.S., Miami, New York City. It's actually Meadowlands, Jersey, New York City Metro. Miami will get it. L.A., Chicago. I think Boston's getting one too. I don't know. Trump's all excited about the World Cup, which is part of this story. But this is Mamdani yesterday talking about price fixing, like he is with rents, price control for World Cup tickets. You know, one of the highest ticket prices in the world because of demand. But he doesn't think that's right because, well, he's a communist. But this is what he said anyway. Laugh out loud.
I had a New Yorker the other day come up to me and ask me if there was any way I could help him get World Cup tickets because he was saying that the cost that he saw for a game was $600, right? This is increasingly out of reach. We have made what used to be a working class game into a luxury experience.
We've made what used to be a working class game into a luxury experience. By the way, side note, here's another thing that drives me crazy about him. I'm sorry that audio was kind of low. Every press conference this guy's done, they can't figure out the audio. They've screwed that up already in New York. They can't even figure out press conferences. It's already that bad. But anyway, so there he is complaining about the World Cup prices. Like I have the kind of power to fix that. This working class game. Okay, this is the funny part. I don't think it's going to happen. First of all, he has no influence over that whatsoever, and he's not going to. He can't understand that the reason why the ticket prices are so high is because worldwide, maybe not in the States yet, because we're not that attuned to soccer yet, worldwide, the most coveted ticket in the world is a World Cup ticket price. That's why they're averaging $600 and only going up. He doesn't understand that because this is a communist that doesn't understand free market, but wants to put his greedy little tentacles in that and screw that up as well. How corrupt would that be? If it's all of a sudden you have a World Cup game in the Meadowlands and there he is getting his free tickets and all his buddies too. But thinks he can actually, get involved with that. He thinks he has that kind of influence. Here's the funny part to me, and I don't think it's going to even get that far, but play along for a second. How great would it be if Trump got a hold of this information and commented on it and threatened to take the World Cup out of the Meadowlands? MetLife. How great would that be? Because we know one thing. Do you remember the announcement? My God, he dedicated a day to it. Trump was so proud, and he should be. It's a big deal. He was so proud. He had the FIFA officials there, past World Cup champions there in the White House when he announced that the U.S. was going to get World Cup and World Cup games in the tournament. He was so proud. And I don't know what it is about Trump. We joke all the time. I've said it many times. Whatever the Trump presidential library is going to be, wherever it is and whenever it comes to be, I swear to God, on the inside, it's going to look like a sports bar. When you walk into a sports bar, there's all kinds of memorabilia and football helmets and hockey sticks and soccer ball. I think he loves that more. There's only two things he loves more than the country itself: sports memorabilia and probably the Trump brand. But the country still comes first. But he loves it. So I would love to see him actually respond back to Mamdani and just say, it wouldn't happen, but if he just said, well, you know what? Maybe New York shouldn't get a World Cup game. Maybe we'll move it to Columbus. I don't know. It would be great. I'd love to see that. Oh, I would love to see it happen, but it won't. This will all calm down. I think Trump's strategy with Mamdani is just to ignore him. I really think that's the case. He knows he's a clown. Anyway, that's it. Biggest story of the day, the feature story. This Hilton story is one to keep an eye on. And again, by the time you're listening to this or watching this later on replay, maybe it's been settled already and the rumor turns out to be true that Hilton, the umbrella brand, has cut ties with this Everpeak franchise hotel chain, and they've completely cut ties and took their franchise license away for what they did in Minneapolis at this hotel. Maybe that turns out to be true. I don't know. I hope it does. I hope so. If not, in my opinion, completely justified to boycott Hilton. Completely justified. Power of the pen is now the power of the email and the cancellation policy and the social media post. That's how we do it these days. But don't doubt for a second that that's not effective. You saw what happened with Bud Light. It can happen here too. I'm the last person in the world who wants to cancel or boycott any private business. But you do something like this, like Hilton did, we'll see. Ball's in their court. But the other important takeaway is we would not have heard about this fake apology from the Hilton franchisee unless independent journalist Nick Sorter actually went in there and he found out what the real deal was. All credit to him. That's fantastic. So we'll see what happens with it. All right. It's only Tuesday. Make it a wicked awesome Tuesday. Be safe. Be good. Get ready to pay attention to the Hilton story, yes or no. We'll find out by tomorrow. We'll be talking about it. Until then, have a wicked awesome one. I'll talk to you later.